aircraft carrier. Fighter airborne.
Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with the mighty Jingles, and today, courtesy of Trude Barkhorn here in the Shiratsuyu, we have what can only reasonably be described in the words of the immortal Sergeant Lincoln Osiris as
like the dumbest motherfucker that ever lived.
And if you think I'm being needlessly harsh, then just wait, watch, and judge for yourself. So, Trude's in the Shiratsuyu, Japanese Tier 7 destroyer. I don't like this ship much. I mean, I'm sure it has its fans, but it has a lot more disadvantages than it has advantages. So let's go through the advantages first. The ship is definitely a small upgrade over its predecessor at Tier 6, the Hatsuharu. She's got one more gun, and the guns do have longer range. But if you're relying on your guns in a Japanese destroyer, and you're not Nakazuki, Kitakaze, or Harugumo, you've probably done something wrong. Their reload is absolutely terrible. The turret traverse is excruciatingly slow. But the individual shells do hit pretty hard. And the fact that you have one more gun barrel than the Hatsuharu, and the guns do have better range than the Hatsuharu, does at least mean that if you end up in the shit, you are capable of delivering a pretty hefty alpha strike. Shiratsuyu's torpedoes also travel faster and hit harder, and she fires two more of them because she has two quadruple launchers compared to Hatsuharu's two triple launchers. She also has the best concealment of any Tier 7 destroyer, 6.7 kilometers stock. Obviously, you can see that Trude here definitely has at least a 10-point captain, because they've managed to get their surface detection range down to 5.8 kilometers. And that's as low as it gets at Tier 7. On the downside, Shiratsuyu's anti-aircraft protection is absolutely terrible, even worse than the Hatsuharu's, and the Hatsuharu is not exactly known for coming with a good AA suite in the first place. That, however, isn't going to be too much of an issue in this battle because there's no aircraft carrier. And while the torpedoes are pretty fast with a speed of 62 knots and do hit very hard with over 17,000 damage, the reload is diabolically slow, tying with the Minsk in Tier 7 destroyers at a 101 second reload. It's not the worst torpedo reload at Tier 7. HMS Jervis, for example, has a reload of 120 seconds. The Gajimada, with its upgraded torpedoes, has a reload of 120 seconds, and with its stock torpedoes has a reload of 130 seconds. But 101 seconds is definitely nothing to be getting excited about. She also has a pitifully low health pool of only 12,800, and once again you can see that Trude has very wisely also taken the survivability expert skill for a little bit of extra health. But what is perhaps the Shiratsuyu's biggest issue is a pitifully slow top speed of only 34 knots. This is the slowest Tier 7 destroyer in the game. Ironically, that low top speed, in combination with some of the Shiratsuyu's best features, the improved range of her guns over the Hatsuharu at Tier 6, and the best-in-class concealment as a Tier 7 destroyer, if you combine those two good points with the terrible top speed, you can find yourself in circumstances that Shiratsuyus really struggle to recover from. Because if you do get spotted in this ship, and you have Concealment Expert on your captain, that means you've just run into an enemy ship who's only 5.8 kilometers away from you. And if they decide to give chase, you're going to have a hell of a time breaking contact, because most of the things that are going to be capable of surprising you in this boat are almost certainly also going to be faster than you. And it should also probably go without saying that anything you run into in this thing, unless it's another Shiratsuyu or a Hatsuharu, is going to be able to beat you in a gunfight. Now, the more observant among you may have just noticed that Trude has just popped their torpedo reload booster. Yes, this is a consumable that is available on the Shiratsuyu, and that's great because it means instead of putting 8 torpedoes in the water and then having to wait 101 seconds, you can put 16 torpedoes in the water and then have to wait 101 seconds. But the trade-off is that you can't have the torpedo reload booster and the smoke generator on the Shiratsuyu. And that's a pretty hard trade-off, particularly when you're in the slowest Tier 7 destroyer in the game and aircraft carriers exist. Not an issue for Trude in this battle, no aircraft carriers. But let's just say that if you're thinking of using the torpedo reload booster rather than the smoke generator in the Shiratsuyu, you'd better be pretty damn confident that you know what you're doing. Because if you do get spotted, you're going to have all kinds of problems. Although that's generally true if you're in any destroyer. It's just more so if you're in the Shiratsuyu. Funnily enough, for some bizarre reason, it's not going to be the case for the Farragut that laid the smoke screen over in the direction of the Bismarck and the Vladivostok. There he is. Getting spotted in any destroyer is usually grounds for a brown alert, however briefly that may be. I know that when I'm playing a destroyer and I get spotted, it often feels like the number of ships targeting me instantly reaches double figures. And yet nobody seems to be targeting that Farragut. Or if they are, nobody's bothering to shoot at him. Weird. Finally, Trude's torpedoes are about to come off cooldown. The first 2 sets of torpedoes, 16 in total, have failed to hit anything. The Farragut is actually heading this way. Yeah. A destroyer spotted in open water is actually heading towards the enemy ships, rather than away from them. I told you things were going to get bizarre. And Trude has kind of screwed up here. The timing really couldn't have been worse. Unfortunately, the handling on the Shiratsuyu isn't great either. And they've managed to ground themselves. So it's going to take some time to get off the rocks here, and that Farragut is getting closer and closer, and still nobody is shooting at him. Trude's gotten some torpedoes away against the Megami, and he's been spotted. And still nobody is shooting at the Farragut. 5 people are targeting Trude. Yeah. But of the 5 people that were targeting Trude, most of them didn't actually have line of fire. But it's nice to know that we haven't somehow managed to skip into some kind of alternate reality where destroyers get spotted and nobody shoots at them. It's just that Farragut for some strange reason. Still spotted. Still nobody other than Trude shooting at him. Oh wait, no, somebody... Well, actually, were they shooting at the Farragut or were they firing at the Megami? It's the Atlanta. Well, it's about time. It's a bit bloody late, but hey, we'll take it. More, frankly, bizarre behaviour. The Megami, tucked in behind the island there, in a reasonably good position, broadside onto a whole bunch of enemy ships, but behind some cover, for some reason decides that, ooh, it's starting to get a bit hot here, and instead of backing up behind the island, moves out into open water. Friendly ships see that, think, bloody hell, tally-ho boys, unleash a volley of armour-piercing shells, ripping straight into the citadel. Megami, presumably thinking, how the hell did that happen, sails straight into Trude's torpedoes. Just shy of 8,000 damage. Not a lot, but it's a kill, so we'll take it. And the team desperately needs all the kills it can get because they're way behind on points. The enemy team have 3 caps, and they have a 1-kill advantage. There's not a lot actually happens in the battle, not from Trude's perspective anyway, for the next minute or two. So we're going to skip ahead to when things start getting mildly interesting again. And it's the return of our friend in the Farragut, and once again, nobody wants to shoot him. Eventually, smoking up on the opposite side of an island from a Chapayev and an Atlanta, both of which are radar cruisers. In fact, I think definitely the Chapayev at least is close enough to detect him with hydro. But nobody wants to use their consumables to flush that Farragut out. There's only one possible explanation for this. That Farragut owes money to the Chapayev and the Atlanta. It's the only explanation that makes any kind of sense. You may have noticed that the Atlanta has turned tail and is getting the hell out of there. The Chapayev is very soon going to wish he'd followed the Atlanta's example. It's going to be the Bismarck secondaries that finish the Chapayev off. But if it hadn't been the Bismarck secondaries, it would have been the Farragut's torpedoes. There they are. Not spotted until the last second, so clearly the Chapayev wasn't running his hydro, and launched by a destroyer that looks like he managed to get within 3 kilometers before he fired them, under the cover of smoke, so clearly the Chapayev also wasn't using his radar. I can't help but feel that there are ways that the Chapayev could have avoided that situation. And yet, despite what definitely qualifies as a fairly major pants-on-head moment, that Chapayev is still not even close to being the dumbest motherfucker in this battle. Trude's torpedoes, once again, back up, and if ever there was a time where you needed to use your reload booster, this was it, because that's a lot of enemy ships coming around the corner of that island, and everybody else is running away. So, Trude dumps 4 sets of 4 torpedoes into the water. Hopefully that will, if not sink a couple of them, at least slow them down and make them think twice about pushing any further around the side of this island. So while we're waiting for further developments, I'm going to give you a little mini spoiler here. We're actually going to have 2 candidates in this battle for the title of
Like the dumbest motherfucker that ever lived.
Now, we're about to have a bit of a good news, bad news situation. The bad news is that those 16 torpedoes that Trude just fired, only one of them is going to find a target, and it's not going to sink anything. But Trude is about to find themselves in the situation, an extremely rare situation in the Shiratsuyu, of being in a gunfight that it's virtually impossible for them to lose. The Lightning is an extremely low health. And while the Shiratsuyu's guns have a terrible reload, the alpha strike of the Japanese 127mm high explosive shells is pretty impressive. And there's no way the Lightning's going to win this gunfight. So that is Trude's second kill. More importantly, much more importantly for the team, who are in control of none of the caps and who are 300 points behind, this cap circle is now uncontested with the destruction of the Lightning. And once that friendly kid gets into the cap circle, it's going to fall very, very quickly. And it doesn't look as if there's anything on the enemy team close enough to do anything about it. 14 seconds later, that's another uninterrupted capture assist. The torpedoes are ready to go again, but the team have fallen even further behind in points. They're now almost 500 points behind the enemy team. To the rear, the Kid and a Pensacola are in a gunfight with the enemy Colorado. But Trude isn't interested in any of that. Trude is about to have a very exciting couple of minutes, because there are a whole bunch of targets down there that are on extremely low health and could relatively easily be dispatched even with the Shiratsuyu's guns. Trude opens up on the Minsk. A couple of salvos should be able to sink it, but that's when that bloody Farragut shows up again. Now Trude has slowed down here, and they've done that for 2 very good reasons. 1, get the torpedoes away. 2, do not get stuck on the inside of that island, because that would leave you exposed in open water with anything up to 4 enemy ships shooting at you. Instead, Trude slowed down deliberately so that they could pass on the outside of the island and use it as cover from those enemy ships. Something that the Minsk over there would have been well advised to do as well, but didn't, and is now grounded, a sit and duck, and 1 more salvo is going to finish him off. This should be Trude's 3rd kill, but what about the Farragut? He did avoid the torpedoes, and he gave early enough warning of them that the Vladivostok and Algerie down there are probably not going to get hit by torpedoes either. Now, on the one hand, that Farragut's torpedoes were very, very good, but on the other hand, the Shiratsuyu is easily capable of doing over 2,000 damage in a single salvo, and he deliberately chose to get involved in a fight with the Shiratsuyu when he had less than 2,000 health. So well done to the Farragut for the torpedoes. They were pretty sneaky, and they almost caught us, but not such a good idea voluntarily getting involved in a gunfight when you're on that kind of low health. The Farragut is a good gunboat, but it's not that good. And actually, despite the fact that those torpedoes were clearly spotted at least a minute earlier, one of them did manage to find a target. It looks like the Zara down there ate one. So it's been a pretty good couple of minutes for Trude. In fact, it's not been a terrible couple of minutes for the rest of the team. There are only 3 enemy ships left. They are still 200 points ahead. They do still control 3 of the 4 caps. So it might be a good idea, since Trude is in the stealthiest destroyer, well, at least the stealthiest Tier 7 destroyer in World of Warships, might be a good idea to sneak into the neighbouring cap circle. This also gets you closer to those 2 enemy cruisers, and your torpedoes are ready to go again, even if you no longer have any charges on your torpedo reload booster. And it looks as if the Zara, at least on the enemy team, is expecting exactly that. The guns are loaded, probably with semi-armor piercing, which absolutely wrecks destroyers, and they are pointing in this direction. The Zara's suspicions have now been confirmed. Somebody is flipping the cap. But as long as Trude doesn't shoot at the Zara, they'll be absolutely fine. Because only a drooling imbecile in a destroyer would be sailing in open water, shooting at a Zara while trying to flip a cap without using their smokescreen. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the USS Kidd, our first contender for the title of
Like the dumbest motherfucker that ever lived.
Now, on the one hand, the Kidd is at least smart enough to slow down and use his smokescreen, because Trude isn't going to start shooting at no Italian heavy cruisers at that kind of range and on this kind of health. So Trude can continue to spot these targets for the Kidd. But the Kidd doesn't stay inside his smokescreen. In fact, he starts speeding up. Well, I say he starts speeding up. He's gunning the throttle, but he's also pulling a hard turn, which means that he's not going particularly fast, but he is going fast enough to not remain hidden inside the smoke screen. So the worst of both worlds, really. And despite the fact that if he takes one more hit, he's dead, he continues to fire at the Zara in open water. I mean, on what level of reality is this a gunfight he is ever going to win? Oh, wait, he's made it back inside the smokescreen. He's even getting shot at by the Gneisenau from the north. Perhaps he's going to get away with it. I mean, he doesn't deserve to, but it would be nice, because if he was to die now, he'd put the enemy team on 927 points.
All stations, concentrate fire on the target.
So, yeah, that actually happened. No doubt at this point you're thinking, well, we have a clear winner. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen anybody do in World of Warships. Well, you'd think so, but you haven't seen contestant number 2 yet. Meanwhile, Trude's torpedoes have sadly missed the Zara, and tempting though it may be to open fire, the Zara is on nowhere near low enough health for Trude to be able to withstand a salvo of 8-inch semi-armor piercing shells. So Trude's just going to keep both the Zara and the Algerie spotted and leave the heavy lifting to the... Can somebody please sink one of those 2 ships? Anybody, please, just... Oh shit. The Algerie is reversing out, waiting to catch the Lyon either with torpedoes and or a salvo of 8-inch. And if that happens, the enemy team have won. And since nobody else is bothering to shoot at the Algerie, this is a hell of a risk. But Trude can't afford to let the Algerie get away with it. Trude is targeted. They've got the Algerie. Now just survive the return salvo. Just survive the return? Yes. Okay, cool. No longer detected. Still alive. That's put the enemy team back down to less than 900 points. There are now only 2 enemy ships left. And the loss of the Algerie and the fact that the team now control all 4 of the capture points means that with less than 3 minutes of the game to go, they can now win it on points, as long as nobody else dies. And this is where we meet our second and final contender for the title of
Like the dumbest motherfucker that ever lived.
the USS Pensacola is an American heavy cruiser that rivals British light cruisers for weak armour protection. Its upper belt and deck armour is only 19mm thick, and its bow and stern armour is only 16mm thick. There are destroyers that have better armour than the USS Pensacola. That 16mm of bow plating and 19mm of deck plating can be completely overmatched by battleships that have guns that have a caliber of at least 272mm. The Pensacola is charging a Gneisenau. This is a battleship that's armed with guns with a caliber of 385mm. A single hit from that Gneisenau will rip through the Pensacola's armour as if it wasn't there. Because, as far as the Gneisenau's guns are concerned, the Pensacola doesn't have any armour. Oh, but come now, Jingles, not everybody understands the intricacies of armour thresholds and armour-piercing overmatch mechanics. No, that's true, I will give you that much. If only there was some other way the Pensacola could be persuaded to stop licking windows. Yeah, if only there was a way. You know, fortunately, neither the Zara nor the Gneisenau proved to be capable of hitting the broadside of a barn from the inside. Which leaves me somewhat conflicted, because while on the one hand I'm obviously happy for Trude that they won, because Trude definitely deserved it, but I'm kind of unhappy for the Pensacola, because the Pensacola didn't. Still, got to be philosophical about this. What's done is done, we can't change it. All we can decide is between the Pensacola and the Kid. Who is going to win the title of
Like the dumbest motherfucker that ever lived.
The comments section awaits. You all know what to do by now. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.